Hello. All right. Thank you. Thank you if you're watching this. As if this is the first one you've seen, so my aspiration with doing these is more just to practice being in front of the camera. And ultimately, I want to read the book cover to cover in this format. And for a number of reasons. I mean, one is it's a really good practice. It's also a really nice, follow along for myself, just as far as like a refresher of the book, because a lot people are reading it and coming to me and wanting to talk about it. It's not uncommon that people are saying things like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed, I can't remember this," or like, "Oh, because and I, my response is I can't remember it either. In the way that I think people sometimes expect of themselves to be able to um be able to comprehend things, because I think it takes a while and it takes some repeats, and it's really about pulling out what is going to be useful in the moment. So yeah, it's been a really for me personally, it's been a very full week. I don't know about you, how it's going. Hopefully well. Hopefully things are coming together and winding down for the weekend. But yeah, so one of the things that's funny about doing these is that my commitment to read all the way through this is very aware of the fact that I have to do it when I don't totally feel up to it. This is, or that I'm even in a really strong position of preparation for it, because I was just working on some stuff completely unrelated right before I hopped on here. So I'm just gonna give it my best shot here. So the part that we're in right now, so I'm reading this chronologically through the book, and when I do think about what I want to talk about, most of the time it's out of sync, but I'm keeping myself on track here. Um, yeah, I'm keeping myself on track here, going cover to cover, so it's easier to make sure I get through it all. So anyhow, we're in chapter 2 right now, and chapter 2 is the overview of the method itself. So so as a repetition, what the method is it's an organizing principle that reflects the chronological development of our nervous system in the first 20-25 years of our life. And what the what the Parinama method does is it divides that development up into 7 facets, or 7 hubs, or 7 stages, where that are really tied to specific periods of development of the brain and the corresponding nervous system in the body. So the method itself is taking each of those 7 facets. So the facets starting out: physical security, emotion and feeling, and that power and individuality, connection and belonging. Then you have expression and communication, and you have vision and insight, and then you have intelligence and thought. So in each of these facets, what we do is we actually evaluate each of them by understanding what they are and what they contain about who we are, and just the nature that shows up in our day-to-day lives. So as far as the individual hub chapters are concerned in the book, if you're following along, this is understanding the initial development, the basics of what is really contained within the hub, and then themes. And that's what I'm going to read through today. I'm going to read through the themes component, the high level overview of the themes for all the hubs that's found in chapter 2. And so to continue, like the method itself, which is learning the hub, which is what we're in right now. And then the next part is understanding interruptions and stressors. And these are the things, these are the events and circumstances that can really shape a hub's development in its initial, in this initial phase of life. And so we're looking primarily at the formation and the respective boundaries, and then also human rights and human dignities as far as expression of the hub and the rights it's afforded and whether those are experienced or not as interrupting factors. And then so it's learning, understanding the interruptions and stressors, and then knowing the adaptations. So anything anything natural, which we are, adapts to survive and makes the best of its situation. And so what we look as is the adaptation patterns that result from the stressors. And so this can either be an overcompensation or like what I, like a shrinking undercompensation, which is I just either to say like I don't actually need that much of that, or to say like I need way more than necessary just to feel safe, that to have enough, I need like way more than actually is enough to feel like to get that feeling. So that comes up a little bit later, but one of the things is that with the adaptations and seeing them and understanding that these are really natural ways to respond to stressing and like I calling them like interrupting events, but when they're applied during really like when we're really forming, when these adaptations are applied, they can really become, holding patterns and really like stuck in like in how we respond to situations as as they relate to the hub. So, the thing with the thing with the book is really coming to be able to see that in ourselves and um and just develop a better relationship with these behaviors, a more understanding, a kinder and more understanding relationship. And then you have, so at the so you have learn, understand, know, and then expand. And so the techniques and exercises at the conclusion of each hub chapter are about really incorporating both the somatic, the physical feeling of the hub and integrating that back into oneself, and also some places for reflection and a little bit of contemplation. But a lot of what we're trying to do, especially in the initial hubs that are coded, so to speak, before episodic memory, before we're using language to really like capture information, um, that we're really looking at more of the somatic, the physical connections, because the coding is really in ourselves. Is that's where we can find it. So anyhow, there we go for that. So I'm just going to read through the themes, and the themes in chapter 2 are relatively short. And the way I do this, if this is the first time you've kind of come on board for one of these, is that it's looking at so what I'll do is I'll just read through it, and as I'm reading, just things will arise, like I'll remember things or just thoughts will arise, so I'll usually speak to those. Let's see. All right, I'm just going to dive in. So themes. Here we are. All right. Even when a hub is well established and high functioning, there are dynamic ongoing themes that elaborate on its basics with ever increasing nuance and complexity that benefit from inquiry. So, the first hub: can you relax or do you remain vigilant? All the foundations of this hub are involved in feeling physically safe, wanted, cared for, and trusting that needs will be met. This trust is ongoing in our lives and profoundly affects our ability to navigate change and stresses in our bodies and physical environment. So I'll jump in on a note here. This is so money, as it relates to the hubs. In the first hub, it's money about meeting physical needs. It's the trust that you're going to be able to pay your rent, eat, take care of your kids, everything that is really foundational that money represents, like healthcare, and in the third hub, when we get into money as, like creating affluence and prestige and greater levels of comfort, that taps into a different relationship with money. But specifically here, so one of the reasons I'm bringing up money here is that for folks who have first hub interruptions, and I'm going to include myself in this, is that no matter how much money you have, anything that um, anything that makes, like unexpected bills are a good example of this. Unexpected costs or anything that makes like anything that threatens financial stability as it relates to a deeper sense of security can be really destabilizing, and in ways that are deeper than you can just talk to and rationalize. So even if it's like an unexpected bill, and if you draw it out on paper, it's like, yeah, I can actually make complete sense of how to pay this. A deeper first hub interruption is actually just going to actually be really shocked by it, or panicked, or destabilized, or become overwhelmed in it. So with this being said, going back to learning, understanding, knowing, and expanding, in the expansion, there's also just management. So sometimes these feelings of overwhelm, it's not just about it's like making the feeling go away. It's about being able to be patient with it and understand that it's going to pass. So it's almost like, it's like babying oneself, which is to see that there's upset that's arising, and to be able to be patient with yourself and allow that to be, which is easier said than done, especially when you begin this practice. But over time, this is something that really helps with the management of something not taking on, like kind of pulling in more things into its into the intensity that actually aren't part of it. So it's like it minimizes, I think, some of um, the impact that it can have. So, okay, themes back in the second hub. How much change and ambiguity can you handle? As a baby, there isn't much subtlety or nuance. Things are either good or bad, yes or no, black or white. But as we grow mature, our intellectual capacity should be able to incorporate nuance and ambiguity. Maturation should support the reality that the truth always contains at least some nuance. Development in this hub eventually grows towards thinking on a spectrum. Instead of black and white, there are infinite shades of gray, because people don't fit into predictable boxes, and a black and white worldview leads to insular and isolated groups of so called like minded people who unintentionally minimize their lives in an attempt to make the world fit their limited capacity for nuance. Yeah, it's certainly a larger conversation. Um, but yes. Yes. Third hub. Do you feel powerful and strong? The so called dependency paradox is the balance between safety and freedom. We all need freedom and adventure, along with safety and boundaries. As young children develop their independence, their bravery is profoundly affected by their trust in safe, attentive, and loving arms to return to after venturing into the world. Mhm. Yeah, and one of the things with the themes that are, as I'm reading this, I'm wondering, like, to what extent this section really captures this is, it is related to nuance. It is related to complementary opposites, which is that bravery is actually the counterforce to that is the sense of safety that, we can find in earlier hubs. So, I think that's, yeah. It's also a larger conversation. So I'll move right along here. All right, the fourth hub. Do you feel worthy of love and acceptance? The balancing act of this hub is between giving and taking, generosity and gratitude. Fulfilling adult relationships involve reciprocity and consideration for both our needs and the needs of others, similar to a balanced inhale and exhale. Mature relationships are also demonstrated by consistently showing up for them. Some folks exhaust themselves through giving but struggle to receive, and others tend to take and struggle to give. All right. The fifth hub. Can you speak up for yourself? The balance in this hub is between speaking and listening, between expressing yourself and being receptive to self expression in others. How open are you to what people have to say, and how much listening do you expect from them? An overall balance allows us to both speak and be heard, and to listen to and hear what we're told. The sixth hub. Are you curious and receptive to seeing new things? In this hub, we see patterns and new information by using past experiences. We create our current experience and shape our future by what we see in our mind's eye. Along with previous experience, our perceptions and belief systems are largely shaped by important people early in our lives. The balancing act of this hub is the discernment of considering if something is insight and intuition or an unconscious bias. More on that to come later in the book. And being able to tell the difference between inner knowing and the social programming and holding patterns from previous hubs. The seventh hub, uh, can you navigate the paradox of both knowing and remaining curious? Yeah. The balancing act of this hub is to remain confident, curious, and open minded instead of becoming rigid and cynical with certainty. Rigid certainty cuts off our aliveness and connection to a changing, evolving world. And in this hub, excessive certainty will masquerade as confidence and intellect, but is actually an excuse to be closed off, disinterested, and to resist change. To be intelligent, thoughtful, and aware in this hub, we ask questions and are receptive to hearing answers without feeling threatened or defensive. Yeah. And in the introduction to the nuance and next section. So we're right now in the physical book. This is page 20. And yeah, I actually I think I have it in me potentially to go a little bit longer, but I don't feel that my clarity is really super on point right now. So I am going to wrap it up and wait until tomorrow to do a little bit more. But I just want to say I really appreciate if you are seeing this. I really appreciate you. I really value what your thoughts are on this content. One, another point around it is that I'm not presenting this as an absolute truth. I really like relish the notion that this is a starting off point of a larger discussion and exploration. And also, I really like hearing from folks who are in the book about what they're like, what's arising for them, what they have questions about, and where more support would be valuable. That has been incredibly helpful for me. So please, please be open with feedback. This is really about your process in this content, not necessarily about my feelings. It's nice to be nice to me, but like ultimately, in the service of how the Parinama method can support you and other folks. That's like ultimately what my focus is in with this work. But yeah, so please, if you want to encourage me, give me some feedback, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and yeah, more to come. Yeah, more to come. So yeah, wherever you are, I hope you're having a really good day, and I'll be seeing you soon. Bye.